More disturbing news on Obamacare. I'm Matt Staver, founder and chairman of Liberty Counsel. Joining me is Matt Barber, vice president of Liberty Counsel Action. Matt, the Department of HHS, or Health and Human Services, said that the rule on anti-discrimination will apply to transsexual people, and that any person who is a transsexual who experiences discrimination at a hospital, clinic, doctor's office, or any other place that accepts federal dollars through Medicare or Medicaid can now file a complaint with HHS and expect to be taken seriously. That's according to a recent press release.
Yeah, this is, of course, the transsexual gender identity confusion is this idea when a person feels like a male trapped in a female body or a female trapped in a male body, something that is clearly psychological up in the head. And now, unfortunately, HHS, and not surprisingly, through Obamacare, is mandating that everybody engage and join in on this delusion. It's kind of an Emperor Wears No Clothes meets George Orwell, in that Emperor Wears No Clothes, people have to join in on the delusion. That George Orwell comes in play when the EEOC and the HHS are telling everybody that they have to also join in on this delusion. It's really troubling.
Well, and let's, for people who haven't looked into this issue very much, let's describe and define what a transsexual person is. And the Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, which is the manual that psychologists and psychiatrists use to diagnose or to use for terminology with regards to diagnosis of people with psychological disorders, specifically references transsexualism or gender identity disorder, called GID. Gender identity disorder or transsexualism, as one of those, is something that is a psychological disorder. It is not a physiological. And in fact, in order to be a transsexual, which is what we're talking about in this situation, your biology and your physiology has to line up. In other words, your biology and your physiology, your chemistry is female. No question about that. Your DNA is female and your physical expressions of your physiology is female, or vice versa. Your DNA is male and your physical expressions of how you look is and your physical parts of your body are male. But despite the fact that you have unity of your biology and physiology, in your mind you want to be, or think that you should be, some other gender than what you really are. Right. So if you're indisputably female, you want to be male. You're indisputably male, you want to be female. And that's why it's called a gender identity disorder. That's what transsexualism is. This is not somebody who is born with certain kind of abnormalities with their DNA or physiology. Yeah. Those are very, very, very rare. This is somebody who lines up, everything is in consistent alignment, except their mind. They want to be somebody that their body is not.
Or it may be related to some kind of prurient interest where they have gleaned some kind of sexual pleasure from dressing in women's clothing and things of that nature. It's all lumped into the same
Well, and it's
category.
the same kind of it's a disorder like in the sense that you have a disorder that your body is one thing but your mind is another thing. You know, bulimia, anorexic bulimia, where you're looking at yourself and you think that you're fat, but in fact you're not, that you're overweight, that you're obese, and so therefore you want to purge yourself in order to not get heavier weight. Also, apotemnophilia is very similar to that. And in fact, they actually compare themselves to transsexuals. And apotemnophilia is somebody who is in an able body. They are in a completely intact body, but they believe in their mind that they should not have an arm or a leg. Or it also has a sexual component where you think that you ought to, or you are aroused by having sexual relationships or watching somebody who is disabled within sexual activity. Those kinds of disorders are mental. Now, the question is, do you ultimately, for someone who's bulimic, anorexic bulimic, do you give them liposuction? And do you amputate somebody because they think that they should not have an arm? The question also should be asked, do you go through plastic surgery and hormones because somebody in their mind doesn't like what their body actually is.
Well, it's a mutilation surgery is what we're talking about here. And you may recall in 2009, Matt, with the debate leading up to Obamacare, I came out and said the way that Obamacare is structured, it can give the Health and Human Services carte blanche authority to unilaterally make these kinds of rulings, but also to rule that healthcare providers must cover exactly what you're talking about there: hormone therapy and sex change operations. Rachel Maddow, the radical lesbian activist and liberal on MSNBC, mocked me on her television program for pointing out that this was a very real possibility. This is the precursor to that. And in fact, that is exactly what a spokesman with an organization, this liberal organization, Center for American Progress, is asking for here. They said, quote, "A law explicitly banning healthcare discrimination based on gender identity and community needs medical providers to know what their obligations are. And passing a law is the next step to do that." They're asking exactly that health care itself, the discrimination be banned. In other words, they want people to be forced to pay for the sex change operations and for the hormone therapy. I got mocked for saying that. Here it is.
And here it is. And this is all part of Obamacare, and this is part of the radical sexual anarchist agenda of this administration and Kathleen Sebelius, the head of the Department of Health and Human Services. You know, Johns Hopkins University was the first institution in the United States to do so-called sex change surgeries. Mm-hmm. And sex change surgeries involve taking hormones of the opposite sex for 1 year. So if you're male, you take estrogen, or you're female, you take testosterone for a year. And then after that year, you go through the plastic surgery. And all it is plastic surgery. And to make yourself look like the opposite sex. There's also vocal shavings for some people. Some people don't have that, and so they still have, for example, someone who might look like a female still has the male voice. But that's what it involves. It involves a significant medical intrusion into the body. That is very risky. And then you have to keep on taking those hormones for the rest of your life, which causes a significant medical complication. So it's not just this risky surgery, but it's also taking these medications for life. Johns Hopkins University realized that there was no medical benefit, and they stopped doing this. And one of the people who actually was in charge of it actually coined this phrase that you don't give liposuction to an anorexic.
Yeah.
For the reason why you don't mutilate somebody's body to match their mind. But now under Obamacare, this will be something that certainly we got the tip of the iceberg here with this non-discrimination on transsexual people. And then I think what we're going to see is this forced coverage of these kinds of risky, dangerous, and unnecessary surgeries.
And it shows you again the problem with political correctness. It is dangerous. Instead of helping these people to actually come into terms with their God-given gender reality, they're going to jump through amazing hoops and mutilate their bodies so that they can try to conform their bodies to their subjective gender identity, which is not in keeping with reality. It just boggles the mind. But that is what's part and parcel of political correctness, is that it's a barrier to truth.
Well, and Kai Feldblum is also one of the people heading the EEOC, and the EEOC came down with a ruling recently that the Title VII and the non-discrimination laws for sex, which essentially is you can't discriminate on the basis of somebody being female or male, now applies to transsexuals as well. And, of course, she is someone who says that when homosexual so-called rights collide with religious freedom, which one wins? Homosexual rights, despite the First Amendment, religious freedom is the loser. These are the kinds of people that we have in these administrations pushing a very radical sexual anarchist agenda. Give us a call at Liberty Counsel. It's time for Silence is Not an Option to be spread across the country, because now silence is not an option. We need pastors and churches to speak up on these biblical and moral values before it's too late. Call Liberty Counsel at 1-800-671-1776 or go to lc.org and ask for the Silence is Not an Option package. Included along with the DVD is this booklet regarding Patriot's Handbook on Political Action for Pastors and Churches. Also, I would encourage you to go to the Liberty Counsel website, lc.org, And if you're a woman who wants to be inspired with the scriptures and enjoy a spiritual renewal as well as a politically sound conference, go to Liberty Counsel's website, and it's the WIN Conference, Women Impacting the Nation, this September.